guys, welcome to episode number 35 of the Bearzi podcast. I can't believe we've gone on this long. And today, my guest is my friend Bryan, who is a fellow YouTuber, musician, and I just found out a real estate agent, which is a topic that I don't know if most people know, but is a topic that I have a huge interest in. So I think let's start off the conversation with that. How when did you get your real estate license and all that stuff type of stuff?
That's actually a really funny story. So, my dad is actually a real estate agent. He's been in the business for, I think, about almost 17 years now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and he's always pushed me to really get into the business. Before I got my license, I was his unlicensed assistant, so I would be helping with all the documentation, grammar and stuff, because English isn't his first language. So I would fix all of that, make sure documents get sent the right way. And he started kind of training me for it. Eventually, he made a bet with me in 2019 that he bet I couldn't get my license by the end of the year. And me being slightly competitive, I was just like, oh, okay, really? So then after three attempts to get my license, I think, no, two attempts, no, yeah, three, sorry. I forget, it's so long ago. But on the fourth attempt, I finally passed both the course exam and the state exam, and I got my license. It was December 26th of 2019.
Oh
And
wow. Congrats, bro. Congrats.
thank you, thank you. And since then, I've just been working in cohesion with my dad. Uh, we're, we work together. If I get a listing, he helps me out. If he gets a listing, I help him out. And he's consistently just been training me on how everything goes, how to read contracts, how to send them, get them signed, how to speak to people, how to get more clients, the ins and outs of real estate, and understanding not just the part where the agent works, but every other person who works, like the title company, the appraiser, the inspectors, things of that.
Mm, that's true. Well, see, like I'm super into real estate because it's where I've built the majority of my net worth. Even though I'm someone I'd consider myself financially savvy, like I'm
Hmm.
someone who saves money, I care about my finances, I invest, like I do all these things around personal finance, like I read personal finance books. But no matter what choices I've made, whether it's saving or stocks or index funds, the one thing that has always built up my net worth is real estate. And I don't know what it's like in the US compared to Canada, but over here we recently went in through like this massive boom where normally I think in Canada house prices you would gain maybe 3 to 5%, like your property would appreciate roughly 3 to 5% per year, right? Which was like a standard amount if your house is worth like 300,000. But now prices boom to like well over 1 million, and that 3 to 5% last year, the increase was like 20%. And this was around the time where, and I know you know this story, but for anyone else that doesn't know, I've been trying to buy this dream house that I wanted for so long, and then all of a sudden prices go up like 20%, and we're talking like well over $1 million. And then there's all these times where I was trying to buy, and it was like for over a year just constant failure. So like, even though, and I like to say this, I have a love hate relationship with the real estate market because again it's benefited me so much, but there's so much frustration when it comes to buying a house and all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But generally I'm super interested in anything related to real estate.
Yeah, Canada and US is like housing market. They're kind of similar. They interact a lot from at least what I've experienced. And also I have a lot of friends from Canada. One of my friends from 9 years ago is from Canada. And they've told me like their housing prices have just skyrocketed in the last 2 years. And I live in Florida. We have a huge market here, specifically in Central Florida. And I remember when 2020 came along and everything with COVID happened, me and my dad were worried because, like, how are we going to be able to work? But to our surprise, 2020 was one of our best years
Oh wow.
in the market, and in 2021 after that as well. Because what had happened because of the pandemic was that there weren't as many workers, so there wasn't people building houses, and we already had short inventory. And then because people weren't working, people were instead saving up their money and keeping their money and only spending on essentials. And eventually, when things were starting to pick up a little bit better, the supply chain was still completely out of whack because things weren't getting shipped across seas. We weren't getting things across borders because things were closed down. Couldn't get the supplies to build these houses, and that's just accumulated into this kind of like a bubble, like you said, which just skyrocketed the value of homes. So essentially, it became a seller's market where the
Mm-hmm.
seller was fine and dandy to sell. The amount of people we sold houses for is insane. Our numbers were crazy. And the amount of offers we received for each listing that we had, well over, if it was a bad day, it was 5 offers. If it was a regular day,
Oh
10, 12, 14.
yeah.
And these are all above asking price. Easily 10 to 20, 30 grand above. And it was crazy. It was a wild time. It's starting to slow down a lot more now, mainly because the economy is opening back up. People have gotten their vaccines. People are starting to go out more, do more things. People going back to work. The supply chain is starting to open up a lot more. But now, because at least in America, the Fed just increased the interest rate as well. Because back during 2020 or 2021, I can't remember correctly, the Fed lowered the interest rates to help combat against the loss of money in the banks and COVID and all that, which made getting a mortgage a whole lot better because you can get a lot more money to get more expensive houses. So people were just getting mortgages left, right, and center. But now,
Mm-hmm.
because all the things that created this special situation, all those different factors are changing, it's causing the bubble to get so big it's about to burst. Because I know by the
Mm-hmm.
end of this year, interest rates are going to be, if I remember correctly, somewhere around 8%, between 8 and 9.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's gonna be crazy.
And
Holy.
it's going to be really bad. There's a lot of people out there in the whole real estate space who predict that the bubble's going to pop within this year. Other people who say early next year. And plus, because of the mad inflation, the gas prices, it's just another factor on top of it. So, what would be my personal opinion, seeing the state of the economy and the housing market in general, we're most likely gonna see that pop, and when that does pop, it's gonna be somewhere between next year, like mid next year or late next year. I'm putting my money on mid next year though.
Mid next year. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because like Canada and US, because we're connected, we go through so many of the same things. Like even here, the Bank of Canada, I believe it was yesterday they increased the interest rate by 2 hikes, so it went up by 0.5%. And we've had 3 interest rate hikes in the past couple months. And before, like you said, when interest was low, like we're talking about like sub 1%, you could get like a rate for 0.9% interest. Like what kind of like that's crazy. You can get a massive mortgage when the rates are that low. And again, we've seen inflation, right, in society. So the Bank of Canada is trying to combat inflation by increasing interest rates. But at the same time, when you do that, now it becomes a lot harder to qualify for a bigger mortgage, right? So now in the Canadian market, we're kind of seeing a reversal where it's a lot harder to get pre-approved. So the bidding wars aren't as crazy. Whereas last year when I was bidding, like I was going in against 35 other people,
Wow.
and they would be like, "Okay, you're in the top 10. Like revise your offer." And I'm like, "Revise my offer? My initial offer was like $200,000 over asking price. You want me to revise it? That's all I got, right?" And then I'd come like seventh, and I'd be like, not even in the top two or something. Like it was just failure after failure and failure. But it was because interest rates were so low, so people were getting these massive and inflated mortgages, and it was so bad for me because I was trying to buy first,
Hmm.
right? Because there's a very specific area that I wanted to live in that is outside of Toronto. I don't know how much you know about
I've
Toronto,
been to
Ontario,
Toronto
Canada.
about,
Oh, you've been to Toronto?
yeah.
Okay, perfect. So Toronto is like our New York,
Hmm.
right? It's very dense, very similar to New York, but there's all these little boroughs kind of all around Toronto to the west, northwest, north, northeast, and east, right?
Yeah.
And this is where families like to live typically. So right now, well, not now, but before I was on the west side,
Yeah.
but I wanted to go to the north, the north end above Toronto, which is a lot more, I guess, nicer and better for families, and also closer to my parents who retired and they live in like the middle of the woods up north somewhere, which is crazy. But what happened to me was I was trying to buy first to get into that neighborhood. And I just couldn't do it, right?
Yeah.
Because it was just so crazy. So I said, okay, forget this. I'm going to sell, right? I'm going to sell first, get all this money, get all these offers,
Hmm.
right? And then I'll go to buy. And the week I sold was the day that Putin invaded the Ukraine. And it was the week that gas prices soared, right? And I listed my house. I had an offer date and I got zero offers. Whereas before, everyone was getting 30, 25 offers. And then I got zero because that week everything went crazy. And at the end of the week, that was the first interest rate hike that we had. And then the market started to go like the other way. And my house was sitting on the market for like 2 weeks. And I was just like I can't win. I can't win, bro. And I was so demoralized. I was so upset. But then we actually got one offer. It was like a low ball offer, like super low compared to what I wanted. So we kind of negotiated. And I met them halfway, and we sold. So even though like my neighbors who sold their homes, they got a lot more than I did. I still got enough to be able to put in again a half decent strong bids in the neighborhood that I wanted. But then when I went back to that neighborhood that I wanted, there was this house that I put an offer on before that I lost, and I kind of like gave up on it. But it was still sitting there because they went through the same problems that we did, right?
Mm.
Because now all of a sudden it was harder to sell. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe that house they're still available, and that's this house that I'm in here,
Oh, that's
right? And
amazing.
so it all worked out in such a strange way. But for me, it was like an emotional roller
Oh
coaster
yeah.
because, and you know this story, like I've had this one core dream in my life, this one goal where I'd write down in my journal every day, and I'd have clear purpose to my life of what I wanted to do. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to achieve. And I've just been working towards that since like 2017 when I got into the real estate market. And I started off with like a condo townhouse that had no air conditioning or no central
Hmm.
heating, like a piece of shit 60-year-old terrible home, right? And then I slowly kind of built my way up over time, and now I'm just trying to build out this studio. It looks like shit right now, but this is where like all my time and energy and effort is going to go into, and it's because of real estate, right? And because of just getting in the market and just keep trying to improve and get the house of my dreams. And it was a wild process, dude. It was wild.
Yeah, real estate in itself is wild, especially I don't want to say Toronto and like Central Florida have are the same, but in terms of the real estate market, it's crazier. Like specifically my area, like we're near Orlando, and we have Disney right next
Okay.
over. We got the beaches on either coast. Got Tampa to the left, Melbourne to the right. It's a superly, what's the word, competitive market for everybody involved. And I've had to deal with a lot of difficult buyers trying to fight for my client, my seller, and I haven't worked with a buyer in so long. I think the last time was somewhere in early 2020, maybe in the,
Oh wow.
yeah. Majority of our clients for the past 2 years have been sellers, because I mean, one, when you're a real estate agent, it's preferable to have listings because things are technically easier, quote unquote, and especially in the seller's market, it's better to have all the listings. But when we have worked with buyers in the past, it's been very difficult to get those offers in because most of the time we have a there's conventional loans and then we have government loans like FHA, and people prefer conventional because it's more guaranteed and whatnot. Cash still is even better. We've had a lot of different cash offers as well for homes over $300,000.
Mm,
Yeah,
wow.
it's crazy, but that's a really sick story. It's that everything worked out, and I love that. It's so great. It's honestly super great.
Yeah, you know what's the most difficult part of all this stuff? And I never knew this, but when you become an adult and you have a family and you have kids, one of the most important things about what you want in the world, like what you want to do, is you want to have a house that's in a neighborhood that's safe, that's close to good schools. And at first, I never really thought about that. I was always like, oh, I want a house that has like a super nice open concept kitchen and renovated washrooms and a good drive, like all these other things.
Hmm.
But when you get older, you realize what is truly important. It's a safe neighborhood that's close to good schools. But the problem with that is what other parents want as well. And so when you find that little pocket where you want your kids to go to school, like for me, there's a school that we found. It's actually ranked really well in our province, and it's because it's a French immersion school. So they do everything in French. There's no
Oh
English,
wow.
right? Because in Canada, French is our it's our second language, right? And if you want to work for the government, like say for you want to work for the government of Canada, you need to know French, right? Because we have this tie to Quebec, which is one of our provinces, which is French speaking, right? So as a parent, French is very important to learn if you want your kids to prosper in our country. And I found this French immersion school that was perfect. But then all the homes around this one stupid area are just like 20% more expensive if you were to live outside of the district because again, here you have to live within a certain boundary for your kids to go to the school, right? You can't just live way off, like that's far away, and then drive them there. You have to live in proximity to the school to actually go there,
Hmm.
right? And once I found out all these things about like neighborhood is important, safety and schools and all these community and even having like a library, a community center, activities for your kids to do things, like all of this stuff is what becomes the most important. It's not about the laminate countertop anymore, or any of this other stupid shit, right? And it's frustrating because I never knew any of these things, right? I had no idea because when I before I had kids, my perspective on life it was completely different, right? I wanted to have like this cool house that I could have house parties in and a big driveway so all my friends could come and park their cars and have a patio in the backyard where we can barbecue and chill. But then when you grow up, those things are so much less important, right? In terms of what you need as a parent and as a provider, because that's what men are at the end of the day. You have this, I don't know what you call it, like a switch, but I had like a mentality switch where like as soon as I became a father, all of my child's needs supersedes my own, and everything is about your kid. And the whole reason I work and I want to provide is you want to be a good dad, right? You want to be a good father. You want to be someone that your kids will look up to. And this is why self-improvement is so important for young men in my opinion, because you can become a man of integrity, a man of discipline. And that is what your kids will love you for, right? They don't want a dad that's a scrub, that's lazy, that hasn't achieved anything, that doesn't know hard work, right? And this is why this whole self-improvement journey has been so beneficial for me, and I always try to preach it at every stage that I can.
I completely agree with that entirely. I was lucky enough to have a dad, and I for the majority of my life I still live with my dad and my mom. Uh, The most amazing thing that this life gave me was my parents and the family that came with it. Because my parents are both immigrants, they both come from Cuba, and my dad, ever since he was a young kid, he always wanted to leave to go to the States, not just because he knew there was a better life there and he wanted more for himself, but because his dad was an alcoholic and eventually divorced
Mm.
from my grandma. And then he left to go to the States to work. And he, for majority of his life, he was raised without a dad. He was raised by his mom and his grandma. But they made sure, and my grandma even told me this, that they made sure that they raised him as a man, that to live with like to do hard work, go get a job, have integrity, and be a man of character. And I think they did a really good job of that because my dad, uh, he's a little stubborn, but he's a very good man, and I love him to death. He sacrificed family, friends, the life he knew to finally get out of that place. I remember he always tells me the story of how he was the first person in his family to go to college, but he never finished because
Mm.
on the day of like one of his final exams, it was the day for him to leave because he finally won the raffle for the visa. So he just left.
Oh my
He
gosh.
left, and then the people from the college came to his house and was like, "Hey, yo, where's Jacinto or whatever?" And they're like, "Oh, he's gone. He's in the U.S. now."
Wow.
Yeah,
What a story.
yeah. Really most of my family. He had it the luckiest, honestly. Him and my mom, because my mom and dad met beforehand, like a year or two before, and my dad told my mom straight up, without a single lie in his words. He was like, "We're not having kids here, and if you get pregnant, you have to abort it because I will not raise children in this place."
Mm. Wow.
Yeah, and my mom completely agreed. She was like, "Fine by me." And then, luckily, like 3 months later, she then won the visa as well. So then she was able to go live with my dad, and he had been working at different odd jobs because some of his uncles were already living there, and they were helping him out in Miami, getting jobs, working at restaurants, hotels, and things like that. And eventually, a couple years later, I popped out.
Oh man, that's funny. You know what's interesting about that? Um, my family is I come from immigrants as well,
Hmm.
and same with my wife's. My wife's family is like the craziest because like her dad, who lives with us, he lives with us here. Like when they came from Vietnam and they had to escape the war
Oh
and they
wow!
had to like live on a boat for 3 days with like no food like it and people I was on the boat with them died like it was craziness like and I feel like people who come from families that immigrate to North America they have that I don't know what you would call it that immigrant mentality where you come here with nothing and you have nothing and the only way you can better yourself is to bust your ass and work hard right and that is like something that again like immigrant parents they instill into their kids right and I'm super proud of my parents as well like my dad for example he came here when he was 16 and he didn't even know English right so this guy's trying to work and learn the language so he's trying to work during the day take English nights like English classes at night like I can't even imagine doing that like imagine if I moved to I don't know. Maybe I move to like South Korea or something where I don't know the language. What am I going to do? Get a job somewhere? I don't know anyone. I got to go find a way to do learn Korean at night. Like how does that even work?
Yeah, I
That
don't
sounds
know.
so crazy, right? It's like I don't even know how our parents they make it through that adversity, right? And but also it gives me perspective right? Where I think about this opportunity that my parents have given me. where I can do anything I want to do in the world. They gave me the chance to go to college, to go to university. They've let me pursue businesses as an entrepreneur, and I've been able to kind of do all these things. And I don't want their sacrifice to be done in vain, right? I want to do something with my life. I might not be going through the same adversities that they went through, right? But I can damn be sure that I can use my time and become a son that they're proud of, right? And I don't want to let them down. And for me, again, I'm always harping back on this idea of self improvement. But for whoever is watching this or listening to this, there's always something that you can find that gives you purpose in life. And for me, it was like the self improvement journey is what gave me purpose. And now, I see that my parents are proud, of their son. They're proud of the man that I've become, right? And it's a great feeling. It's a great feeling to have at the end of the
Oh
day.
yeah, I've only honestly recently felt that because for the majority of my life, I've always understood where my family came from, the struggles, especially a couple years ago, starting from like 2015, I would visit Cuba every year, maybe once or twice. So I know what they lived through. I've lived in the places that they used to live. I've spoken and spent time with my family members there, cousins, uncles, aunts, and I've seen the living conditions and like imagine waking up every morning and your breakfast is just heated bread with mayonnaise and that's it.
Oh man,
Yeah, not
shit.
having hot water, you have to heat the water on the stove and then bring it to the bathroom, things like that. I mean,
Hmm.
it's I've adapted to it pretty well because I guess what's the word? I'm just adaptable. But ever since because my parents always told me these stories when I was younger, and my biggest dream has always been to help my family. And I've never really mentioned this in any of my own videos, but I mentioned a lot to friends and family. The only reason I want to be a massive success is solely just so I can get my family out of there, or at least support them while they live there, because things are extremely expensive. I think we were just talking about this a couple days ago, me and my family. I think a pound of steak or pork, most likely pork, because steak is super rare there, is like $350 in their currency. Yeah,
What?
and
Oh my
I
god.
think $1 here is 100 there. Or is it? It's probably 80 now because they've started changing things.
Oh my gosh, that's wild.
Yeah.
Do they I've been to Cuba once. Do they still use that converted
Oh,
pesos
CUC.
currency?
No, they got rid of it a couple years ago.
Oh, they did.
Yeah,
Oh,
now it's
that's
just
interesting.
CUP. We used to have to I had to memorize the conversion rates when I was there, so I can know, okay, so this is this much, and because they have a different stores or whatever, and I'd go out with my cousins and buy stuff. But now it's just the Cuban peso.
Mm, okay. Yeah, that place was crazy because when I went there, I had to buy converted pesos, which it was almost on par to the US
Oh yeah, it's
dollar.
ping to
And I
it.
was like, okay. Yeah, and then we would go out and then I don't know, buy something with my converted pesos. And then the change they would give me was regular pesos, which was worth like nothing. And I was like, what is going on here? This
Yeah.
is like so crazy,
Now
right?
most places prefer you pay in euros or US dollars.
Really? Euros.
Yeah, euros. I remember my parents took a trip a couple months back because we're planning on going pretty soon, within this month actually, to stay there for a month, and we're organizing things because it's basically my dad's like the godfather of the family in a sense. He's the one who makes things happen, and everybody just follows his orders. So he procures the money, he goes exchanges it here, then he takes it with him, and then there was a bunch of euros, like thousands of euros that we had to get and then bring it over there to pay for things like food, clothes, necessities, things like nail polish, or for the ladies
Wow.
and stuff, and then money to reconstruct things at people's different places and houses or cars, because the cars are super important because one side of the family runs a taxi business. And then another side of the family, I think something else with the car, I forget. But it's things of that nature that, and the reason why they ask for USD and euros is because the government wants to suck it all up and keep it and like keep most of it. Like it's
Oh wow.
yeah, when you know about this stuff, it makes you realize how twisted the whole system is. That's why my dad wanted to get out.
Hmm. What is? See, I'm pretty ignorant to what's going on in a lot of countries around the U.S. But like, what type of government does Cuba have?
It's technically communism.
Is it still
Yeah,
communist?
it's still
Okay.
communist. Let's see, the Castro family is still in power. However, the president was just, I believe, either Fidel's or his brother's right hand man.
Yikes.
Yeah, and
Ay, ay, ay.
they still even you know how well, I don't know if you know, but during World War II in the U.S. they had like these little papers where you would get like a certain rations of food at every home or whatever. They still have that.
Oh,
That's been like that since the beginning.
like food stamps?
No, like people, the government would come to your home and give you rations of food per
Oh, rations of. Oh my
yeah, per
gosh.
household. And there's been so many people that we know of, like family, friends, or mutuals that have been arrested for like 20 grand fines because they would steal other people's cards and go and pick up the food themselves.
Wow.
Yeah, part of me is like that's stupid, but the other part of me is like, yeah, fight the system. uh, it's
Oh my, that dude, that's crazy. What the heck?
mhm. It's yeah. That's the
Wow. See, that gives you like perspective, right, for what you have. So is your goal like does your family intend to bring everyone over into the US? Like is that what you guys
no.
want to do?
My dad's a very noble man, as in he has a very big heart, but in his youth and his early adult life, he's seen how that's really hurt him, particularly with the family. And he's given opportunities to. I remember one cousin who just had a baby with his wife to like, hey, we can easily get you a visa or help you out to get here, and once you get here, you can stay living with us. And he denied. He said he couldn't leave his mom or his dad, his sister, and all this. And I told him straight to his face, like this was over dinner. I told him, you just had a daughter, and you're telling me you don't want her to have the best life possible, and you'd rather she lives here. I understand she'll be with family, but she can always come back and see them. She's not going to stop being Cuban when she's American. She's going to live a much
Mhm.
happier life, and you will as well, and your wife. And it's just that fear. People have been conditioned to believe the narratives or to believe or to be fearful of the different things. Like, oh, I know a lot of people from Cuba have unfortunately had to get to the U.S. via boats or raft they made, or fly to somewhere in Central America and then get taken through most of Central America into the States.
Wow. That's wild, bro. Oh
Yeah,
my
the
gosh.
story, especially when going through all the different countries in Central America, the stories I've heard of running through jungles and going through rivers and gunfire and leopards and stuff.
Oh man. See that sort of see I don't know what I think about that, but that kind of also reminds me of like all these countries that have like these communist type governments or used to have communist governments or whatever. For whatever reason, they never seem to work. Like it just never works out, right? And this idea that we haven't done communist correctly yet, and that we have to do it right. And there's this weird, like, I don't know what you call it, socialism. That's I don't know if you're seeing it, but it's building up here in Toronto, where there is this desire towards adding more socialist or communist or Marxist ideas into our government. And I'm always thinking like, man, like we need to learn from these type of countries, right? That have been ravaged by these type of governments. Even look at like North Korea. Like look at North Korea in comparison to South Korea, or North Vietnam compared to the South, or whenever there was like one was communist and one was like a democracy.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been the one that's a democracy that's flourished. Like look at South Korea. They have Samsung and they have K-pop and they have, I don't know, StarCraft, this
Squid Game.
StarCraft League and esport. Yeah, they have everything, dude.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like a thriving country, and I know because I've been there. I've been to South Korea. But then when you look at North Korea, you hear about like poverty, no electricity, people in stone camps, slavery, like being under the thumb of a dictator. And I'm always like, man, like we need to learn from these type of countries and make sure we don't make the same mistakes, but also find a way to help these people, right? And try to find a way to do something like exactly what you said, where you're trying to help your cousin and his daughter, right? But it's hard if they don't want to receive that help,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's when it's tough, because then what do? You can't force him to come
Yeah.
over and live with you guys, right? And like I don't know what you're supposed to tell him, right?
It's it's starting to become very clear, specifically to his sister, because her daughter told her a couple months ago that she refuses to have kids there, and that
Mhm.
her and her boyfriend are going to find a way to get out the safest way possible, but they're leaving. And that she called my dad up as soon as she heard that. She was like, "She's sounding exactly like you when you were a kid." And my dad's like, "Yup, I knew it was going to happen eventually." And it's,
Uh,
but yeah, when it comes to communism, for me, having seen and lived, because like there's a lot of tourism in Cuba. I know it's all from Canada. I've met some Canadians while I went to Cuba a couple times, and they don't really see the reality of it. Like, because when you go to Havana, because that's where all my family's from, the province of Havana, and then you go to the city of Havana. When you go into like where the capital is, everything looks so nice and pretty. But then when you go down a couple blocks, everything's in ruins. Like we've had, like it's infamous for us to have buildings collapse on top of people in their
oh my
homes
god.
in the middle of the city. We had I think a couple weeks ago, we had a gas leak in a hotel that was supposedly renovated just blow up. It was a disaster, and it just keeps happening because there's no. Well, my dad always says, while other countries are developing, Cuba is underdeveloping. They're going
Oh.
backwards because my theory, at least, or at least what I believe, is that it's not really a government, it's a business. They've the government has taken the population and made it its workers to suck up all the money in the economy from them working and doing their jobs or whatnot, and then it goes to the top 1% up in the government, which is the Castro family, and then the rest of the money goes down to their constituents, and then the population is just left to fend for itself. And I
Hmm.
for me, communism and fascism, there's not much that makes them different, because the only difference per se is just its economics. One wants to share the wealth with everybody, whereas the other one wants to be capitalist and that the people at the top keep it all, right? But at the end, it always ends up the same, because that power that people get. This is why me and my brother talk about this a lot. We always say, uh, in not the nicest words, what kind of a person Fidel was, but we can't deny he was extremely intelligent. He
Hmm.
was the smartest person. He took it. He saw the time he was in, and he saw the opportunity at hand, because originally he didn't think of communism when he started the revolution. It wasn't until he uh, got hold of the Communist Manifesto and started having talks with Russia that he was like, he saw the fruit of it for himself, not for the country, but for himself and his lineage. So eventually, because I mean, all countries make a lot of money. Like most countries make over millions of dollars, hundreds of millions, and the bigger ones trillions, right? What if somebody took that, ran the government, but really just took the majority of the money for themselves?
Mm,
That's kind of,
yeah.
at least that's my theory about what's going on in Cuba and whatnot. What I've seen with my own eyes and heard, it's what makes the most sense. But I mean, I would encourage anybody who can travel to Cuba if they're legally allowed to, because not many people are, specifically in the States or anywhere else. Just go and try to have somebody take you into the outskirts of Havana or the other provinces. Like go west and go to Pinar del Rio, where my grandpa's from, where people are scared of cars because they've never seen them before.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah, who people
that's
who
wild.
live out in the mountains and at the age of like 4 have a machete on the side of their hip and work out in the fields and receive cigarettes as rewards from their parents.
Yeah. Oh, that's so crazy. See, like when I went there, obviously, as a tourist, you stay on the resort, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you don't really get to see like the country as a whole. But there was one day where we went into town, which I was telling you, where I used the converted pesos to buy some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But when we went from the resort into the town, we drove down some, it's like some normal road, and it looked fine.
Were
But
you in?
then,
Oh, sorry, I don't want to cut you off. You were in Veradero, right?
to be honest, I can't remember. It was, I think, whatever the most typical resort
Like a
for a
beach town,
foreigner would be.
or no?
I can't remember at
Ah,
all.
okay. Well, never mind. Continue. I just wanted to make
Yeah,
sure.
it was something probably super common
Yeah.
where uh, I don't know, people that go on vacation go to like a typical resort.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because the further away we got from the resort, it seemed like the worse the conditions got. Like we started seeing like homes that looked kind of rough, and then all of a sudden there was like little shacks that looked like tool sheds. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And then we saw like abandoned cars that were like rotting and rusted, and it like the poverty, I guess you would say, like it becomes more apparent the further away you get from this like safe resort for
Mm-hmm.
tourists, right? And then we eventually get into town, and it was super fun, man. The people there were super nice, very. I don't know what the right word is, like jovial or very happy, like a lot of like spirit, a lot of passion, like very nice people, like to communicate with and talk to, and they're happy to see us, right? Like, oh, like foreigners or whatever we were, right? There was like a nice interaction that I had there, but then again, when we went back, you see the transition. And I'm sure that what I saw was very limited. Like we're talking about maybe like a 10-15 minute car ride. Like, so what I saw, it's like nothing in the grand scheme of things, right? But I have a small understanding of what the country could have been like if homes are like these little tool shed shacks. Like that seems so crazy to me, right?
Yeah. My family is lucky enough that, specifically on my dad's side, to have kept the same homes for generations. Because my on that side of the family, my great grandparents are actually from Spain, and they immigrated to Cuba because I believe there's some kind of a war going on in Spain, like a civil war, and my grandparents hopped onto a boat as castaways to and had to hide from the crew to make it to Cuba and then start their life anew there.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's wild.
So it's my family just has a history of going from place to place. I hope I don't have to leave the states to do the same thing, but I no one ever knows. But yeah, we've had the same homes, and they're like brick and mortar, nothing really bad. They've renovated it over time and just kept it nice and clean. Not so much my mom's side of the family, because we always joke about this, but we always joke that my mom comes from like the ghetto of Cuba, like of art, just a couple minutes away from where my dad lived. The street, not even streets, like the roads are just completely destroyed, potholes everywhere. Some of it is just sand and dirt. And not because it was always like that, but because the pavement, the sidewalks have just crumbled, and over time with weathering, it's just become dirt and sand. And the houses
Wow.
have are just brick that you can see it's deteriorating, and they have to repair it every so often, and hope that
Mhm.
the house doesn't fall on top of them.
Oh my gosh,
Because
dude, that's
there's
wild.
no building code in Cuba. Like there's no like says, oh, you have to build it this way, that way. It has to be like the most there is like, this is your plot of land. This is what you can make it out of, which is just like stone and cement, or whatever. Be like, have fun, do whatever you want, just don't die. And if you die, oh
Yeah.
well, oh well. Honestly, I wish I could kid you, but I'm not.
Oh my gosh. You know what's interesting about Cuba? Like, even though I went once, a lot of my knowledge, I, mean, I wouldn't say knowledge or like understanding of the country comes from that comedian Joey Diaz. Did you ever listen to Joey?
I never listened, but my brother did. My brother is a huge fan of him.
Man, in my opinion, I think he's one of the greatest comedians of all time.
Oh, he's
Like,
hilarious.
if I could, like, when you think about comedy, right? Like, the way you rate comedy is how hard you laugh, because that's what comedy is all about, getting the laugh, right? That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
Comedy doesn't care where you came from, what your gender is, what your skin color is, your height. They don't care. It's all about what gets the laugh. And whenever I listen to Joey Diaz, one of the things that kills me the most is when he goes on these epic rants and he talks about Cuba, and he talks about what it was like there, and he talks about his love for Cuban sandwiches or something, and the
Yes.
food and the people. He just goes on these wild, insane rants about the Cuban culture, and I've never laughed harder in my entire life. Like, that guy, um, for Cuban people, I think is he's such an important figure, because we're talking about a guy who escaped Cuba, came to the States, but became like a criminal, became like a drug addict, became someone that was addicted to, I don't know if it was crack or cocaine, or like he's crazy, like he's a crazy guy, right?
Yeah.
But now he's someone that is like super inspirational, super successful, right? And he's someone, that's a very kind human being when you listen to him actually talk about stuff. And I'm like, man, that guy, he must be someone that a lot of Cuban people look up to.
I just sorry, I'm stuttering, but this is not a joke. For me, that was Pitbull, like the
Oh,
artist.
really? He's Cuban?
Yeah, he's Cuban.
Oh, okay.
He was my first idol when I was growing up, because I used to
Oh,
live in
yeah, you're a
Miami.
musician.
Yeah, I would see him on stage and listen to his music and be like, I want to be that guy, because he
Mhm.
represented his country so well, and he was always a man of. I mean, his songs were kind of explicit, but when you hear him speak about where he came from, what he's done, because he used to be a criminal too, but he cleaned up his act once his music started blowing up. He became a nice, classy gentleman, like sophisticated, and I like always wanted to be that, to be somebody of not just intelligence for the sake of intelligence, but what I can do with it and how I can share it with my people, like my family and my friends and my community. And also just because I just loved music as well. And I would like to be that figure for the Cuban people, because we have a couple different people. Most of them are artists who I listen to, but they're more of a like reggaeton, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the Cuban reggaeton has its own space, but let's just say the modern generation are a lot more vulgar than the
Mm.
previous ones. Uh,
Okay, I see. I see
and
what you're saying.
and I'm a potty mouth myself. I won't even lie. I mean, that's how I was raised. Thanks, mom. Yeah.
Shout out to mom.
I love my mother, bro. Honestly, my mom. My dad's the
Uh,
calm one. He has a temper, but he's calm. My mother, she would tell me stories. I don't mean to get off topic, but she would tell me stories about the fights she would get into. And she was a short, skinny little girl. I've seen pictures of her before. Some neighborhood girls were talking, making fun of her sisters, and she just walked up to the three of them and started and just bitch smacked all three of them and got into a fight.
Jesus.
And then she got mad at her teacher because her teacher was being mean to her. So she grabbed a desk and slammed it against his head, and his head went through the desk. She's a lot calmer now. All right. Sorry, mom, for calling you out, but she's a lovely
Oh my
sweetheart.
gosh.
She everybody like if my mom doesn't like you, it's your problem. Like you're the issue. She's just so sweet.
Mm. Yeah, that's funny how like our parents have like contrasting personalities, or you can't believe they did something back in the day because it looks completely off to what the type of person they are now.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, because my dad is he's sort of like this super alpha male
Mm-hmm.
type dude. Like he is like the leader of the tribe. Like if we were stuck somewhere, that dude, he he takes initiative like no one I've ever seen. Like even today, my dad is he's coming down to help me work on like again this office, and I have like a vision of what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to have like this like the podcast studio here to my right, and over on the side I want to have my space to record my videos, and also another space to do like the live stream. And my dad came over and he's like, okay, we're doing this. We're gonna paint the wall gray. We're gonna add a cabinet here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, and see, like here, we painted the wall gray. Like, because he comes and he lays down the law. And I'm like, dude, what are you even saying? And it's like he he just takes control of situations in a way that I admire,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I've never been some like I'm someone who's I'm very confident in my abilities to a point where I can be arrogant at times, and that's like a downfall with my personality.
Yeah.
Where sometimes I am overconfident to a point where it's a detriment. But I've never had those qualities of a true leader, of like a true alpha who takes control of the situation, regardless of what other people think, because he believes 100% that his way is the best way. It's the right way. And it's funny because my father, he's a creative, and this
Mm-hmm.
is where I get my creative juices from. Like he's good at painting, he's good at photography, and these qualities. I never even knew he did this stuff, and it wasn't only until recently I found out.
I'm in the
And
same
so I
boat.
trust, yeah, I trust his eye when it comes to creative stuff. But the funny thing about his eye is that he's colorblind.
Oh.
So I'm like, Dad, what do you know about colors? What do you mean we're going to paint this wall gray? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, trust me. Like in photography, you want to have a gray wall so it blends in. You have camera work so it'll look nice in your background. Like he has all these crazy ideas. I'm just like, what are you talking about? But again, it's like things that we admire from our parents, right? And it's qualities that I sort of wish I had, but ones that I'm trying to build, and ingrain into my lifestyle. And again, to be a better leader, to lead my tribe, to be a better father, to be a better parent, and overall just to be a better human being, right? And I feel like learning from our parents and seeing what they went through and qualities that they have are things that it can rub off on
Oh
you, right?
yeah.
If you pay attention and if you're willing to accept that.
I've definitely been analyzing that a lot because I got a lot of my mildness and calm character from my dad, but I got his same rage and fury.
Cuban
Oh
rage.
yeah, like oh oh my gosh. But I also got my mom's love and sympathy, and being able to like being able to flow love out of me. Like a lot of my friends always tell me like you're a rare kind of guy, right? And I don't that's not to my own horn, but basically I'm not afraid to tell somebody how grateful I am for them or be honest with my emotions for them. Like I have a lot of my guy friends that I'm like, I'm grateful for you. Like you are an amazing man and I'm so glad to call you my friend. And they just stand there in awe. Like, did you really just say that? You mean that? Like, yeah, I mean it. Like, why wouldn't I say it and not mean it? And I think
Yeah.
it's everything has its pros and cons. And there's a lot of pros to that because I'm able to understand people a lot better and I can like feel their emotions. There's been many times where people have told me something sad about their lives and I've cried right there with them because I felt what they were feeling. But the issue with that is that I've been too noble, as my dad likes to say, too gullible, too very easily to be deceived by others and being used by people like that who have not had the best intentions. So it's sad, but it's the reality we live in where you have to build these characteristics of yourself, but also be aware of yourself and of other people. So like you don't that goodness isn't in you. It doesn't get used for malice. It actually goes to the right kind of person, which is something I've been struggling to really comprehend because for the majority of like my childhood life, I was always timid. I was always shy. I was very quiet. I didn't talk a lot. Which was in contrast to even earlier in my childhood. I was a kid at the playground who'd walk up to anybody and be like, "Hey, do you want to be my friend and play tag?" Like I was the initiator. I was always naturally a social person, very extroverted. But because of elementary school, I just got bullied. People made fun of me because I sneezed a lot because I had allergies and whatnot.
Oh, I have allergies, bro.
Yeah,
I have horrible allergies.
I would sneeze 10 times in a row in just one sitting.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it was bad. Not so much anymore, thank God. But as I grow older, I just was more closed like this. But in the past 2 years, thanks to COVID giving me time to think, and then eventually getting so down bad, I had to look up on YouTube how to fix your life. And eventually listening to people like Jordan Peterson and then listening to Joe Rogan till eventually early last year, my brother, funny enough, my younger brother introduced me to Hamza like 8 months ago. And that's where everything started changing for me. And now I've learned to open up a lot more to the point where I can notice a difference. And I've been putting into practice these new social skills that I've been learning because I can't do anything from the four walls of my bedroom. You know, I can learn as much as I want, but until I put it into actual practice, it means nothing. So I've been talking to strangers more. Like I go out and run errands. I talk to the cashier. I talk to the customer over there. Or I see someone who looks cool or he's got a cool outfit. I'm like, hey, man, you look great. You know, being polite, always smiling. Even a little bit of like just flirting with the waitress or whatever, or somebody who I just fancied. Just like saying, hi, how you doing? And people have just been so shocked and surprised that I'd be speaking to them and they end up smiling a lot more. It's something that I've always knew I wanted, but didn't know how to go about it and didn't know what it looked like. And I thought for the longest time, like people would just automatically hate me the minute they saw my face. Some like deep childhood trauma, I believe, but I've been learning to combat against it because all that is just my self-image. That's just what my brain, or my subconscious brain, I should say, kind of has learned over the course of my life so far. And I've learned to try to dismantle that image and build a better one. And that's how I've been able to make videos for my own channel and make more friends and communicate with strangers and be more open and honest and receive that actual positive feedback from people. Like the amount of people who call me sir or the compliments I receive from other men and women is just so like, oh wow, like it's nothing super major because I'm not like, I wouldn't say I'm like a high value man at all. Like I'm 21, what do I got to offer to anybody, right? But being just nice, but like not like the nice guy, but being social but assertive and asking questions and really like wanting to like look into the person's soul and like be like, hey, like I acknowledge you in my existence. Things of that nature is what I've been trying to practice and talk about, and it's really helped me a lot. And it's wonderful. I honestly owe it all to my younger brother because that kid matured a lot faster than I did.
Oh man, yeah, you see this is super interesting because like you're 21, which is super young, and like there's parts of your brain that you like, that still haven't even fully
Oh
developed
yeah.
yet, where you become a man, right? But like when I was 21, I and people around my age were at even like a lower point in life where you guys are now. And it's almost like your learning is expedited by the access to information that you have through the internet. And it's people like Hamza, where you can find on YouTube or you can find other self improvement YouTubers. This information, it's all there. Like it's all there. You just have to find it. Whereas for me, like when I was 21, which was 16 years ago, there was none of that. I was just
Wow.
playing basketball all day. You know, there was no YouTube. There was nothing, right? And so the access of information, it was still out there in the world. Like there was still like the Tony Robbins of the world, you know, like those motivational type speakers, but it was a lot, the access to that information, the path was a lot more difficult,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what I love about the self improvement journey is that anyone can take these ideas and change. And you mentioned that you were someone that was extroverted, whereas for me, growing up, I was extremely introverted. I had a fear of public speaking. I was scared to talk to people. I was scared to do presentations in front of the class. Like I was someone that feared conversation entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And but it was because I you can work on those skills, right? Just like you can become a better musician, you can be a better video editor, you can be a better artist. Like these are real skills that you can work on. And socially, I've worked on those skills and it's like completely changed my life. Whereas now, I'm super comfortable having live streams for like 2 hours on my YouTube channel. I'm super comfortable having podcasts with strangers, or even talking to a camera, or just having conversations with random people, like you said, out in the world. And again, like these are skills that you can work on just like any other skill in your life. If you want to be wealthy, personal finance is a skill. If you want to be happy, happiness is a skill. And as long as you just open yourself up to these ideas, right? And find someone that inspires you. And for a lot of young men, Hamza is that guy because he's very relatable,
Mm-hmm.
right? He is very relatable to young men because like I think he's what, 24,
I,
25.
yeah.
So he's only a couple more years older than you. And you can see if you practice what he preaches, then maybe you can be exactly like him 4 years from now, right?
It's yeah, Hamza and Chris from First Man. Both those two,
Oh, he's
I
good
have
too.
them on
Yeah.
my desktop wallpaper actually, like because they're Hamza for me is motivates me to be more of myself in self improvement, whereas first like Chris motivates me to build my masculine character and the style, like the outfits, the way of speaking. Like a blend of the two is like the kind of person I've always wanted to be, coincidentally. And that's what I'm aiming for. But the best part of it for me, honestly, is that my brother, who's 5 years younger than me, he's actually 16, started self
Oh,
improvement
wow.
without knowing what it was at like age 12.
Wow.
Yeah, and I saw him grow up, and his main reason for wanting to improve himself was because I was the older brother, and he wanted to just catch up to me and to not be the same chubby kid anymore. So he started working out, started like going on like cutting, reading more books, learning about cars. Kid's a genius. He fixed an entire truck all by himself with just YouTube videos.
Holy
He's
shit!
so
Wow.
smart. He's intelligent, smarter than me, honestly.
Yeah, yeah.
But and he worked on it. Now he's got a nicer physique at 16. Like he looks like a man. Like he's got his facial hair, he's got his muscles, he's got his way of speaking. An amazing storyteller. And there was a period of 4 years in my life before self improvement where I was a total Jeffrey. Even worse, like it was really bad during 2020 and 2021, I'd say. Like I want to say near the end of 2021 and more so like near the end of 2021 I really started taking things seriously, and then earlier this year I was like, I'm done. I'm doing this. Before all that, a typical day was waking up extremely late from being playing video games all night. Then I'd eat shit for like most of the day, maybe do some work with my dad if I had to or whatever. Be stuck in my room most of the day, watch a TV show, anime, or whatever. Then, if it was a weekend, I'd wear my headset, my VR headset, and hop on this. I can't believe I'm saying this VR chat. I don't know if you know what that game is,
VR,
dude. It's
VR chat.
it's it's a game that came out in 2017. It's a
Okay,
virtual
let me
reality
Google it.
social game. That's all it is. It's just you talk to people, right? And I got introduced to it by a friend of mine off the internet. And I didn't have, like, the majority of my social life back then for years was on the internet. And some of those groups were falling out. So I decided, you know what? This is a social game. Perfect place to make friends during COVID, right? So I started playing on my desktop.
So funny.
Yeah. And I became obsessed. I became part of different communities. Eventually got my headset and then the full body tracking. And of course,
What?
like I have everything in a box because I'm selling it now. But I had the trackers for my feet and my hip, and then I had the Valve Index with like the best headset out there, which is like $1,000 for the whole kit.
Valve Index.
Yeah, with the knuckle controllers and whatnot.
Oh, I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah,
Okay. Oh my gosh, you have. It's like those things they're like on your fists, right?
yeah, like the where it tracks your fingers.
Oh my gosh, you have that? That's hilarious.
I know.
Dude, what the heck?
I was addicted. I was addicted, and unfortunately, I got into the really big party culture on VR chat. Where because like in the game, there's a lot of different worlds that are strictly just for like partying, like clubs or drinking game places, and I became part of a lot of communities where that was like the main focus. And so every like Friday, Saturday night, sometimes even during the week, I would hop on super late, pull out my alcohol, and if I had a weed on me, I would also have that, and I would just get blasted and be up till like 8 in the morning.
Wow.
It was bad.
All right, hold on. 1 sec, bro.
Yeah.
Be right back.
Welcome
All
back.
right, sorry for your chat, your alcohol and weed. Keep going.
Yeah, I started playing and doing that around August 2020, and I fully quit the drinking and all that. I want to say not March, February 2022. Like I just stopped.
That's good.
Yeah, it was. I did play like, but only on the desktop, and I didn't drink or anything for a while because I was still attached to the game because of the people in it. Because one of the groups I became really really deep into, and I even had like 2 meetups with them, which were honestly some of the best times of my life because I was surrounded by people and we're going on adventures around the place we were in and playing games and talking, having conversations. It was just what I always wanted, just to like have a group where we would come together and experience life. But slowly I started realizing that the more I stayed in those groups, the more I'll be susceptible to the same bad habits that I was doing: my sleep, the drug use, the negative mentality, not having the energy to do anything, the porn. Oh my god, that's this VR chat has a horrible culture when it comes to sexual stuff. Like there's a whole thing, or like there's a whole market that they have for different devices that people use to have intimate moments through the game.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
people
wild.
sleep in this game. They base like people have 1400, no, not 1400, 14,000 hours and more in this game.
Oh
It's
man.
it's bad. Like I thought I was a Jeffrey, but the some of the people I knew playing this game were even worse, dude. It didn't make I felt pitiful. I felt bad for a lot of these people because a lot of them have a lot of potential. They're really smart, they're caring, they're talented, they got skills, but it's just they don't see the bad they're doing to themselves, the poison, not just in a literal sense with drugs and whatnot, but also in the sense of the mentality, the words, the way they communicate with each other. It's just I had to get out. I had to get out of it. I
Hmm.
for the longest time I tried to do both. I tried to be around but not partake in those things. But when imagine trying to have a conversation with somebody about real life stuff, about their emotions, their ambitions, their feelings, about what they want to do, about what they did last week, maybe some philosophical idea. Like I don't, I'm not conform. I can't conform to just basic conversation. I need something deeper than that. And imagine trying to have that while on a Discord call with everybody playing League of Legends, or everybody like getting drunk and dancing alone in their rooms in VR chat in a club or something. Like you can't really do that, and especially not if they're intoxicated, because then
Hmm.
everything you're saying is just going through one ear and out the other. So, like, I have pictures of these guys on my wall. Like, I have a picture wall, and I have pictures from our meetups with them, and I'm like, they mean something to me. But I realized I couldn't really help them because some of them wouldn't even want to listen or they'd get mad at me. So I thought the best way to help them was to help myself. And eventually, after some time of progressing who I am, maybe they'll see me again. They'll be like they'll be inspired by me. Like I'll be the figure for them to look up to and see it's actually possible to change their lives and to see the real world, the reality of things, and break through those walls that they build for themselves and the negative self thinking that has kept them in this place and the habits and so forth, to try to be actually genuinely happy. Because
Hmm.
when the high fades, what do you have left?
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's that's deep, man. Y- This is sort of relates to why I'm very critical of video games. I'm sure you've seen on my channel recently where I've taken a very hard stance. Where before I'm like, it's cool. You could play with your friends, on Saturday night. Maybe hang out and do stuff. But now I've kind of taken a hard stance where I feel like you should just quit. You should just quit video games entirely, and not just because they're a massive time sink, but when I think about video games, the progression at which they keep improving, and like you said, this whole virtual reality stuff where they become more immersive, and now you have like these things you wear on your knuckles, and you said you have sensors for your hip and your feet. Like video games are only gonna get worse. They're going to get more immersive. They're going to get more addictive. The storylines are going to be more amazing. And in my opinion, especially again, we're targeting young men here. almost every male friend that I have, that I know, that I have known, or that I've come across, all play video games regularly. Everybody, every single person, right? And it's become normal because it's so much fun. It's like, oh, you play a Fortnite last night, or Call of Duty, Warzone, or League of Legends, or whatever. And this is a problem. There's an infinite amount of games that you can play, and even this VR chat that you're talking about, like there's huge communities of people that are just like into this game and that are obsessed. And I never even heard about it before. I never even knew this game existed.
Yeah.
Imagine how many more virtual communities are out there in the world where young men, especially people that are in like their teens, late teens, that are potentially ruining their lives and throwing away their potential because they're addicted to a virtual world instead of doing something in the real world.
The worst part of it,
It's tough,
I don't
man.
mean to even cut you off. I
Go ahead.
was one of the youngest within these communities. Like, the, I started like what when it was 2020. I was 19, and I was never a drinker before then, like at all. Like my family, like what's it called? Like, oh, the little sip here, like I never really liked it. It wasn't until I started playing that game that I got into that whole drinking culture and all this other stuff. But a lot of the people within these communities that I was personally friends with or knew about, they're in their late 20s, even in their early 30s. Some people even that I've met very rarely, but still there, people in their 50s and 60s who are part of this culture. And I feel so much sympathy because I know the pain that they're feeling. I know that they are not happy with their lives in some way, even though they say they're enjoying themselves. What you're really doing is just running and hiding from the fact that you're not happy. Like I feel that. I feel that so much. There's the amount of times where I've had the headset on and I've been surrounded by people who were my friends, but I was still just I was muted and I was crying to myself because I just was so unhappy and unfulfilled. Were too many nights, man. There's just too many. I was
Mhm.
disappointing my family. I was disappointing my brother. I was disappointing myself. I wasn't talking to any of my friends from my hometown or even other friends I had on the internet. Like it became bad, and I know how that gets. So it's so crucial for people like you, me, Hamza, for Chris, and everybody else in the self improvement space to get this message out and to not be afraid to believe in what we're saying. Because one person, if we can help just one person to hear what we have to say, and the gears start turning in their head, and they start, trying to slowly implement these things, and they feel even the remotely bit of happiness. It's improvement for us as just a society and as a species at this point. Because I'm very fearful of what's coming up. Like there's new clothes that people can wear for VR that they can start to feel pain. Like it sends shocks to your muscles at different
Oh
levels
man.
to feel like actual physical pain. This is only gonna get worse from here on out. It's at one point people like even the whole metaverse thing, people are gonna plug in. Maybe not now, maybe in 10 years, 20 years, whatever, it's gonna happen. They're gonna plug in and live their life in this virtual world instead of reality. And I've told people before, I don't care how sophisticated, how realistic, how just incredible the virtual world becomes, nothing is ever going to beat the real world. Nothing. I don't care who you are, what it is, or what kind of expensive, incredible technology you got. You can't replace reality because you're just playing God at that point.
Hmm.
And that's a scary thought
Wow.
because not even just for the people in it, but the person who's in control of all that technology, like just the capabilities of that is disastrous.
Mhm. Yeah, it's you know what else really hits home with me is the moment that you log off and you put the controller down, the amount of self-hatred that you feel towards yourself because you know you just wasted 8 hours leveling up your skills in a virtual world, and then you come back to reality once you turn that power switch off and you realize that you're like a sloth. You're useless. You're not productive. You're a weak human being. And there's this level of escapism where after we turn off the virtual world, we try to go to sleep to forget about that session that we just had and hope for a new day. And you just want to forget it. And it's such a terrible feeling to have, because if you spend that time in the real world, right? And you don't have to always be working out or lifting weights or building a strong body. It
Yeah.
could be reading books, becoming more intellectual. It could be building better relationships, becoming more social, or just being an overall happy, more genuine and grateful person, so that you won't have to escape the real world, because you as a person in the world is someone that you respect and someone that you admire, and so there's no need for the escape. Like, even for me, I love waking up in the morning and just starting my day, because there's so many things I want to do, right? There's so many videos I want to make. I want to take my daughter to the park. I want to eat like amazing food with my wife for dinner. I want to like talk to my parents, my brother, or my friends. Like, the real world is amazing. It's an amazing place where I have no desire to turn on that switch for the virtual world anymore, because I found a level of happiness in the real world that I've achieved, again, through self improvement, through discipline, through gratitude journaling, through setting goals and figuring out what I want to do with my life. And if we can promote this idea more, and even if we save one person, like you said, if you can save one Jeffrey out there, then there is this butterfly compound effect where maybe that guy, he can become the next Chris, or he can become the next Hamza, and maybe he can start a whole new movement on his side of the world, and again change more people's lives. And I think we need, it's unfortunate because it's hard to take a stance against video games, and I've noticed this recently where everyone loves video games, where if you talk shit about it, they come after you and you
Oh
get a
yeah.
lot of like hateful comments and responses. But for me, I'm lucky enough to be at an age where the opinions of other people and criticism that I get, it doesn't really matter, because like my skin is so thick. Like, I've gone through so much in my life. Whereas before, when I started YouTube, those hateful comments, they would get to me. They would hurt my feelings. They'd make me feel bad. But now I'm at a point where, like, man, I just love life. And if a couple people are hating on me because I don't like video games, that's okay. It doesn't really bother me. But again, it's this hope of finding those few Jeffreys in the world, those few people. That if we can help them and maybe change their lives, you can just make the world a better place, right?
It is. And it's funny that you mentioned like just having this excitement for life and enjoying the things in reality. It's something that could be so simple yet even so silly. So whenever I get ready for like the day, like I'm getting dressed, I'm always standing next to my window, and a lizard always stops by like on my windowsill, and I just start talking
Oh,
to the lizard, like, "Hey man, how you doing?" And he nods a little bit, and I mimic him, like he's just interacting with nature in that way. And then I go outside, and then I see another lizard, and I say hi to him, kind of like, maybe I'm crazy or whatever, but it's silly, goofy fun out in the real world that's just unique and real. It's like childhood stuff that you would do. Like I remember when I was a kid, I would run around with my neighborhood friends and we go explore the ditch, or we'd jump on the trampoline trying to do cool new stunts, or I don't know, anything outside like that. I miss that childhood. I wish kids had a lot of that childhood, just exploring the world and being outside. Like I remember being yelled at for being outside too long. Like I miss those days.
yeah, I had that lifestyle growing up. It's crazy because, like, well, I grew up when Nintendo came out, like the very first Nintendo with that orange gun. It's like for Duck Hunt
Oh
or
yeah,
whatever.
the NES or the SNES?
The NES, the first one.
Oh
Like, I
wow.
remember when that came out, because I was born in '84,
Mm.
right? So my recollection of memories, it doesn't start really until 1990. Because you don't really have memories when you're 4, or maybe you do, but for me, I have memories from like 6 years old and on.
Mm-hmm.
And my whole life, it was just like riding my bike with my friends to the park, or like doing crazy shit by the creek, or playing basketball, on the court in the park, or whatever. Like there's always like these experiences that we had that were so fun. And we never had these addictions. And this is also another interesting point. In my day, I hate when you say that. It makes me sound so old.
You
But
know,
like
it's okay.
back, like when I was in high school, there was never a subject of mental health. This was never a thing. Like no one ever talked about social anxieties and mental health issues and addiction and all these different type of things when it comes to electronics and technology, because we didn't have it, right? There was no social media and video games to get addicted to. But now look at the mental health crisis that we have in this nation, in North America, right? Just look at the mental health problems that people have when it comes to social media addiction or Instagram likes or any of this bullshit that we deal with. Like when we didn't have these addictive technologies, we didn't have these first world luxury problems, right? And again, this is where I feel like you have to be very cognizant of what you're spending your time on, right? And then especially these video games that are coming out, they're just so attention grabbing, they're so addictive, and they're run and created by extremely smart people. Like we're talking about, these are games that are created by computer engineer graduates that are super smart, super educated, and they study on a daily basis the human mind, right, and the human psychology and what addicts us as human beings, right? And it's only going to get worse, right? And I don't see how video games would decline. Like the graphics are going to go backwards. Like we're going to go from 4K to 8K to 20K resolutions. It's going to be so immersive. We're going to have like 80-inch curved QLED monitors everywhere. Like it's going to be a wild place to be in. And if you can't find that connection to nature or find the connection to the real world, then more and more people are going to want to find ways to escape their real life because of their social anxieties that they have. And that escape is going to be in the form of virtual reality and video games. And it's a sad thing that's going to happen, because I feel like it's a natural progression that we can't stop. It's at this point, I feel like it's unstoppable. It's gonna come, right? But I feel like if we can try to not save like sounds like such a weird word. Like we're not
Mm-hmm.
saving people. Like maybe assist people, and maybe help people, guide them down a path of more fulfillment, right? And I feel like that's the best thing that we can do in this self improvement space.
I completely agree. Like this, we're not gonna go from 4K to like PS2 graphics, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, what we're doing here, in a sense, is I like to think of self improvement as modern day ancient Greece or ancient Rome,
Mhm.
with people like Socrates or Epicurus, Seneca, things of that, like people like those in times previous to us and throughout history. We are, I don't want to say regurgitating, but themes are coming back up within this space. I think history has a tendency to repeat itself, and when when a society is starting to have these problems of mental health or what they do with their habits and their time, there are going to be always be people who have gone through that, and then they understand what changed that experience for them, and then they share it with the world. It's I want to say we're a very small minority of the population who are thinking this, but we're growing a lot. You know, Hans is like pushing that extremely high, and a
Yeah, he's
bunch of,
killing it.
oh, he's killing it, dude. It's amazing. I'm so proud. And so many
Me
other,
too.
yeah, right, so many other people like ourselves who may have smaller channels are still pushing it on our fronts. It's We are making an effort, not only for ourselves but for our brothers and sisters on this planet, to help them not succumb to the increasingly sophisticated pleasures that us as man have created. It's it's very it can be demoralizing, it can be scary how crazy things might get. But I think those who those who are on self improvement, regardless of whatever their craft is or whatever they put their time into as their skill or their career, they're going to come out on top, maybe on a business sense, maybe on a sense of popularity or influence. And they're if they're following self improvement correctly, they eventually get to a point where like it's time for me to lead, and then they'll be that leader for the people within their circle, within their family, within the community, eventually the rest of the space. Because if you think about it, self improvement really is not just the journey for yourself, but how that journey then ripples to other people. Because I say a lot of the things Hamza says because he just says things so great, right? But enlightened self interest, where you understand the importance of your own selfish needs and how that's going to benefit the people around you, your tribes, so to speak. It's you understand that what you give, what you put out there and receive for yourself, and then like directly and indirectly affects the quality of life for everybody else around you. Because if you're not on self improvement, say you're a Jeffrey, and you have bad mental health and you're being rude to yourself, you're going to be rude to other people. It's extremely correlated. But if you're on self improvement and you're trying to be this Adonis ideal, or whatever your ideal is, you're going to try to be happier and work on your mental health and your physical health and all these other things. And you're going to share that happiness with you, because you can't just bottle it up. Who bottles up happiness? Like you're going to want to share it with other people and try to bring this goodness to others. I feel like people always think our world is a very dark place, and yeah, there's positive and negative anywhere, but we live in a universe of duality. We live in paradoxes. Humans can't just be good or bad. We have these qualities that are intertwined within our nature and our character and in our manners and actions. Like if you have something that's good that you enjoy, you're going to want to share it with others. Like that's what I've always wanted. Like the only reason I ever played video games was because I wanted to share this fun with people. I played Minecraft for 7 years only because I found a friend on there, and she introduced me to another group of friends, and then that was my main friend group. I would only get on just to play so I can talk to them and have fun and adventures with them. And that's why I got so addicted to VR chat, because I became so tight-knit in these communities, because people would listen to me, because I would say things and give them the time of day and use the little social skills I taught myself in my younger years. I don't know why I'm saying younger years. But
yes, I hate that saying.
Right? And what I learned from my professional clubs back in high school and middle school, to make people feel like they exist and like actually converse with them. That's why I was so addicted to these games, because I wanted to not only be a part of a group, of a tribe, but provide for the tribe as a whole and the individuals in it with a sense of purpose, a sense of existing, a sense of having a real connection with someone, because I understand what it feels like to not have a real connection with anybody. So I try to make sure when I go meet somebody new outside of this game or of these games, now that I'm off of them, I try to bring that same energy, and that inadvertently makes people smile. Like I said earlier, the amount of people I made smile and happy with my improvement in my social skills and my health, my mental health, Like my dad even told me a couple days ago, like, I've noticed you're so much happier. You talk to us more. You're out of your room more. You're serious about the work. You're really changing your diet and your health. Like you got a compliment from one of our clients the other day when I was out of town. They told me you were excellent and amazing. Like you really put in the work. Like I see what you're doing, and it makes me so happy. Like it's impossible, like I said, to bottle up that happiness. It has to come out, and it's infectious.
Mhm. Well said, bro. Well said.
Thank you.
Hey, we did an hour and a half. Unfortunately, I got to go and do some stuff.
Oh, no worries.
Um,
This
but
was
I
really
love the
fun.
conversation, dude. You're a super introspective dude for only being 21, bro. Very
It took some
impressive.
time.
Very impressive.
I'll tell you that much.
Oh man! All right. So for anyone that's watching this, check out Bryan's YouTube channel. Super interesting guy. It is the Lonely Caribbean on YouTube. I'll leave links to his work in the description down below. And thanks for having this chat, man. It was a lot of fun, and we definitely should do it again in the future.
Oh, please. I love that. Thank you for this opportunity, man. It was such a pleasure talking to you. I had so much fun, and I learned a
Yeah,
lot too.
man. Well, we'll do it. We'll do it again, bro. All right, guys. Thanks for everyone watching this and listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Peace, y'all.
Peace.